The twin suns of Korathar burned high above the great arena, casting long, sharp shadows across the blood-stained sand. The crowd, tens of thousands of alien spectators, filled the stone terraces, their voices a deep, rumbling roar that echoed like thunder through the steel walls. They had come for one reason only, to watch something die. At the center of the arena stood the beast of Raxus, a towering creature of muscle and armor-like hide. Its claws could slice through a starship's hull, and its breath carried the heat of molten metal. The beast had fought in this arena for 12 years. It had killed 300 challengers. No one had ever survived longer than a minute. The alien announcer's voice boomed through the arena's speakers. Citizens of Korathar, today you witness history. The beast of Raxus returns to claim its 301st victory. The crowd erupted, stomping their feet and pounding on the railings. Some shouted the beast's name. Others raised banners soaked in dried blood. The smell of smoke, sweat, and fear filled the air. But then, the arena gates began to open, slowly, creaking as ancient metal scraped against stone. Every eye turned toward the entrance. The announcer's voice lowered, full of excitement and disbelief. And now a new challenger enters, a creature from a forgotten world called Earth. From the darkness of the tunnel stepped a human. He was tall, but not heavily built. His clothes were torn and dirty, and he carried no weapon, no armor, no shield, only a simple chain around his wrist, a broken tag from some forgotten army. His face was calm, his eyes cold and focused. His name was Captain Elias Ward. Once, he had been a soldier for the Terran Defense Forces. Once, he had led men into battle across 3 systems. But now he was alone, captured during a failed mission, sold to the Korathar slavers, and thrown into their arena for amusement. The crowd looked at him and laughed. Their sharp-toothed mouths spread wide in cruel grins. A few aliens even threw scraps of metal at him, shouting insults in their strange language. Elias didn't react. He simply walked across the sand until he stood before the beast of Raxus. The size difference was almost comical. The beast was 5 meters tall, built like a living tank, its black eyes glowing faintly red. Elias barely reached its chest. The announcer shouted again, his voice trembling with excitement. The human enters unarmed. A brave fool or a desperate soul. Let the battle begin. A deep horn sounded. The crowd roared. The beast moved first. With a thunderous growl, it charged forward, each step shaking the ground. Sand and dust exploded under its feet as it raised one massive claw and swung. Elias didn't move until the last second. Then, with a single step to the side, he let the claw pass just inches from his chest. The crowd gasped. The strike had missed. The beast roared again, confused, then slashed a second time, faster. Elias ducked. The claw tore through the air above him. He rolled away, came up on his feet, breathing steady. His body moved with the discipline of years of training. He wasn't fighting like prey. He was analyzing. From the stands, a group of alien nobles leaned forward. One of them, a silver-scale creature with 4 eyes, hissed. He dodged the first strike. No one has ever done that. Another laughed. Luck. The next one will cut him in half. Elias wiped sweat from his brow. He spoke softly to himself, his voice calm and low. Fast. Strong. But not wild. Controlled. You're trained too, aren't you? The beast tilted its head, almost as if it had heard him. Its breathing slowed. Its claws lowered slightly. For a second, both stood still, staring at each other. Then, the beast stomped forward again, this time slower, more cautious. It circled him, eyes locked on his every move. Elias shifted his feet, keeping his distance. He could feel its intelligence. It wasn't just a monster. It was a fighter, forced into this endless killing. The crowd began to chant, "Kill, kill, kill." Elias ignored them. His focus was absolute. Every movement, every breath of the beast told him something. It limped slightly on the left leg. Its right shoulder was covered in old scars. It had weak points. He whispered again, "You're tired of this too, aren't you?" The beast's growl changed tone, less rage, more pain. But before Elias could move, a bolt of electric energy shot from the stands, striking the creature's collar. The beast screamed, collapsing to its knees. The Emperor of Korthar stood from his golden seat above, voice booming. No mercy. The show must go on. The pain made the beast furious again. It rose, eyes burning red with rage and shame. It charged. Elias had only one chance. He ran forward, directly at the monster. The crowd gasped. At the moment they met, Elias slid beneath its arm, grabbed a handful of sand, and threw it into the beast's eyes. The creature stumbled, blind and roaring. Elias jumped to his feet, breathing hard, sand sticking to his sweat. The horn sounded again, ending the first round. The crowd erupted in chaos. No one had ever survived a full minute. The announcer shouted, his voice shaking with disbelief. "The human lives. The beast of Raxus did not kill him." Elias stood tall, chest rising and falling, looking up at the Emperor's box. His voice was calm but full of challenge. "You wanted a show?" he said. "Then watch closely." The crowd went silent. For the first time in 12 years, the arena did not belong to the beast. It belonged to the human. The arena was silent. The crowd of thousands who had come to see another quick death now sat frozen. The human was still alive. Dust floated to the burning air as Captain Elias Ward stood tall, chest heaving, eyes locked on the massive shape of the beast of Raxus. The creature blinked, rubbing sand from its dark, scaled eyes. It had never been hurt before, never been made to hesitate. From the royal balcony, the Emperor of Korthar leaned forward, his gold armor gleaming under the suns. His 4 eyes narrowed in disbelief. "A human," he growled. "A fragile creature of flesh and bone, defying my champion?" The announcer, his voice trembling, tried to stir the crowd back into frenzy. "Behold, the unarmed challenger survives the first round. But how long can a weak human last against the might of the arena beast?" The audience began to shout again, though less certain now. Some laughed, some booed, and some whispered among themselves. The word human carried to the stands like a curse and a question all at once. Elias slowly walked in a circle, keeping distance from the beast. His boots dragged faint lines through the sand. His heart pounded, but his mind stayed sharp. He had fought in wars before. He had faced machines, raiders, alien soldiers. But nothing compared to this. Still, one thing was familiar: fear. He had felt it before and learned to master it. Fear was not his enemy. Panic was. He whispered under his breath, "Control the fear. Control the fight." The beast shook its head and roared again, the sound deep enough to rattle the bones of the arena walls. The crowd cheered louder. It charged once more, claws cutting through the air. Elias rolled aside, barely dodging the first strike, then jumped back as another claw slammed into the sand, sending dust flying. His body was quick, but he could feel how close it had been. If he was one step slower, he would already be in pieces. He backed away, breathing hard. The collar around the beast's neck flickered with red light. He saw it spark, tiny pulses of energy running through it. He realized then, the creature wasn't fighting by choice. It was being controlled. Elias frowned. "So they're forcing you too," he said softly. The beast paused just for a second, as if hearing the tone in his voice. But then another pulse of energy shocked it again. The beast screamed and rushed forward, wild with pain. Elias was thrown backward by the impact of a missed strike. His shoulder hit the sand hard. He rolled, coughing. The crowd cheered again, thinking he was finished. But he stood, slowly. His knees trembled, blood trickling down his arm. The beast was panting now, too, chest rising and falling like a bellows. Its muscles shook from exhaustion and rage. Elias looked at it with calm eyes. "You're not my enemy," he said. "They are—" The alien emperor clenched his jaw. He leaned toward his advisor. "End this quickly. The crowd grows restless. Kill the human before he spoils the show." The advisor nodded and pressed a button. The beast's collar lit again, stronger this time. The creature screamed, thrashing as electric energy burned its neck. It clawed at the collar, but it wouldn't break. Elias saw his chance. He sprinted forward, dodging the wild swings, and reached the beast's shoulder. He jumped, grabbing the edge of the collar. The crowd gasped. No one had ever dared touch the arena beast. The shock hit him instantly. Pain ripped through his body. His muscles locked. Sparks crawled over his skin. But he held on. "Hold still," he shouted through gritted teeth. He pulled, twisting the metal with all his strength. The collar cracked slightly. Sparks flew into the air. The beast froze, confused. Its eyes turned from red to dark yellow. For the first time, the two locked eyes, not as enemies, but as prisoners of the same fate. The emperor shouted from above. "Enough! Guards!" shocked them both. Another surge of power blasted through the collar. Elias was thrown backward into the sand. Smoke rose from his arm. He screamed in pain, his vision blurring. The beast howled beside him, claws digging into the ground. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Even they began to realize something had changed. The announcer tried to speak, but his voice shook. The human, he tried to free the beast. Elias groaned, forcing himself up again. His vision wavered. The sand beneath him seemed to glow red from the suns. Still he stood. Blood ran from his nose, but his eyes were sharp. He looked up at the emperor and shouted, "You call this honor? You call this strength? You're nothing but cowards hiding behind collars and chains." Gasps rippled through the audience. No one had ever insulted the emperor before. The emperor's face turned dark with fury. "Silence the animal," he roared. But the beast didn't move. It looked down at the human, breathing hard. Slowly it stepped forward, standing between Elias and the guards above. Its eyes, once full of hate, now held something new, respect. Elias stood behind it, both of them framed against the suns, casting long shadows across the arena floor. The crowd didn't cheer this time. They only watched. Something powerful had changed. No one could explain it, but everyone could feel it. The arena that had always been a place of death and fear now felt different. For the first time, the beast did not obey, and the unarmed human was no longer just a challenger. He was a threat to the empire itself. The suns of Korthar hung low now, their light turning the arenas, sand into a sea of gold and blood. The heat shimmered in the air, but no one in the crowd felt it. Every eye, every breath, every whisper was fixed on the two figures below, the human and the beast. Elias Ward stood with torn clothes, bruises spreading across his arms and chest. Dust clung to his skin, and blood dripped slowly from a cut above his eyebrow. Yet his eyes were steady, calm, calculating. The beast of Raxus stood opposite him, its enormous chest rising and falling. Its black scales glimmered under the suns, cracked in places from years of forced battle. The collar around its neck blinked faintly, but for the first time, the beast did not obey the emperor's control. The crowd murmured. The emperor sat frozen in disbelief, his golden armor reflecting the red light of the evening. "Why does it hesitate?" he whispered to his advisor. "Because, my lord, The advisor replied quietly. It sees something it has never seen before, mercy. The Emperor growled. Mercy is weakness. Send in the guards if it doesn't kill soon. Down in the arena, Elias took a slow breath. He studied the beast's movements, the way its claws twitched, the slight limp in its left leg, the way its breathing grew slower each time it paused. He wasn't fighting a monster anymore. He was fighting a soldier. Elias raised his voice, calm but firm. You don't want this. I can see it. You're not their pet. You're a fighter, same as me. The beast's head tilted slightly. Its eyes, once a furious red, dimmed to a dull orange. It looked confused, almost curious. The crowd waited for blood. None came. The silence grew thick until the Emperor slammed his fist down on his throne. The collar flared again, bright and angry. A surge of power shot through the beast's body. It roared in agony, its claws digging deep into the sand. The roar shook the stands, cracking the edges of the stone pillars. Elias didn't move. He stood still as a wave of energy passed, waiting for the creature to regain control. When the beast finally looked up, its eyes were full of both fury and pain. The crowd began to chant again. Kill him. Kill the human. The beast charged. The ground trembled. Each step was thunder. Elias didn't run this time. He waited, timing the strike like a soldier waiting for the perfect shot. The beast swung its arm, a massive claw tearing through the air. Elias dropped to one knee and twisted his body. The claw missed by inches. As the beast's weight carried forward, Elias stepped in close, closer than anyone had ever dared, and slammed his fist into the creature's jaw. The sound echoed to the arena like a thunderclap. The crowd gasped. The announcer's voice cracked as he shouted. He struck the beast. The human struck the beast. Elias's hand throbbed from the impact. His knuckles were bleeding, his arm shaking from the force. It was like punching a wall of iron, but the strike had landed. The beast's head turned slightly from the hit. It didn't fall, but it paused, as if surprised that a human could touch it. Elias stepped back, panting. He wiped the blood from his mouth with the back of his hand. See, he said softly, you can be hurt too. You're not a god, and I'm not prey. The beast blinked slowly. It reached up, touching its jaw where the blow had landed. A deep rumble came from its throat, not quite a growl, not quite a laugh. Something else. The crowd didn't know what to make of it. Then, with a sudden roar, the beast struck back. Its claws swept through the air. Elias jumped, rolling across the sand. A second swipe came immediately after, slicing a deep trench into the ground where he had stood a moment before. The fight turned fast and brutal. Elias moved like a shadow, dodging left and right, his bare feet kicking up sand. The beast attacked with power that could shatter stone, but Elias used its size against it. Every miss costing the creature energy, every dodge making the crowd lean forward in awe. Minutes passed. Sweat poured down Elias's back. His muscles burned. His lungs screamed for air. But he kept moving, kept thinking. He noticed it again, the hesitation. The way the beast's claws stopped just short each time. The way its roar seemed more frustrated than hateful. Finally, they faced each other again, both breathing hard, both covered in dust. Elias lowered his hands, not in surrender, but in understanding. You don't want to kill me, he said. You're being forced to. The beast tilted its head again. A low growl vibrated in its chest. Deep, steady, almost human. Above them, the Emperor rose from his throne. Enough of this farce. End him now, or I'll end you both. The collar flashed once more. The beast staggered, crying out as electricity burned through its veins. Elias watched, his jaw tight. Stop fighting me, he said quietly. Fight them. Something changed in that moment. The beast's eyes blazed gold, its muscles tense, but not in rage, in rebellion. With a single motion, it reached up and ripped the collar from its neck. Sparks exploded into the air. The crowd screamed. The emperor froze. And Elias, battered, bleeding, half-conscious, smiled. For the first time in 12 years, the beast of Raxus was free, and beside it stood the first human ever to land a strike, not out of hate, but out of respect. The arena had always belonged to death. Now it belonged to hope. The collar hit the sand with a heavy thud, its lights dying one by one. Smoke curled from the shattered metal, rising like black ghosts into burning air. For the first time in years, the beast of Raxus was free. A deep, low growl rumbled in its chest, not of pain, but of something new. Freedom. The sound echoed through the arena like distant thunder. The crowd was frozen in disbelief. They had seen this creature slaughter hundreds, but they had never seen it defy the emperor. Thousands of eyes followed the beast as it lifted its massive head toward the royal balcony. The emperor of Korodar stood slowly, his face twisting in anger. His golden crown glimmered under the twin suns, and his voice shook the air. "You dare disobey me? You are mine." The beast let out a roar that shattered the sound of his words. The noise rolled like an explosion, shaking dust from the arena walls. Even the guards stepped back in fear. Elias Ward stood a few steps away, breathing hard, his legs trembling. His body was broken and bruised, but his eyes were alive. He looked at the massive creature beside him and saw not a monster, but a soldier just like him. He whispered, "You've been their prisoner too, haven't you?" The beast's glowing eyes turned to him. For a long moment, the two just stared at each other, human and alien, man and monster, both understanding without words. Then chaos erupted. The emperor raised his hand. "Guards, kill them both." Dozens of heavily armed alien soldiers rushed into the arena from every gate. Their armor gleamed black, their rifles humming with blue energy. The crowd began to shout again, not in joy this time, but in panic. Elias clenched his fists. He had no weapons, no armor, and no strength left to fight an army. But he had something more dangerous: hope. He turned to the beast and said quietly, "If you can understand me, now's the time." The beast let out a deep snarl, lowering its body like a predator preparing to strike. Its claws dug into the sand, tail sweeping behind it. The guards opened fire, plasma bolts slicing through the air. Elias dug behind a broken stone pillar. Heat seared his back as energy blasts exploded around him. The beast roared and charged forward, slamming into the first line of guards like a living avalanche. Bodies flew through the air. The sand turned to glass under the power of its steps. The crowd screamed. Some tried to run. Others stayed, unable to look away. Elias crawled to his feet and grabbed a fallen rifle. The weapon was heavy and strange, built for alien hands, but he managed to aim it at the guards. He fired once, twice, bright flashes of blue light. 2 guards fell. He shouted, "We fight together, big guy!" The beast roared in answer, swiping through another group. Its claws tore through armor like paper. The smell of burning metal and smoke filled the air. From the balcony, the emperor screamed orders, his voice lost in a storm of chaos. "Kill them! Burn them both!" But the soldiers hesitated now. Some stepped back. Some even dropped their weapons. The sight of a human and the arena's most feared creature fighting side by side shook them to their core. Elias dashed toward the beast as explosions shook the ground. He fired again, covering its flank. The beast, bleeding but unstoppable, crushed a massive pillar, sending shards of stone flying into the enemy ranks. When the dust cleared, half the arena was in ruins. Smoke rose high into the alien sky. Elias stumbled beside the beast, coughing. His lungs burned. He looked up at the creature, who stood tall and proud, its dark skin glowing faintly red under the suns. He smiled weakly. "Not bad for our first team up, huh?" The beast let out a low rumble, not quite a laugh, but close enough. Then, suddenly, the ground shook again. From beneath the arena, massive steel doors opened. Out came the Emperor's last weapon, the Titan Guard, a mechanical war machine twice the beast's size. It moved on 4 legs, glowing red eyes scanning the battlefield, its metal cannons charged with energy. The Emperor shouted from above, "Let's see how your little friendship survives this." Elias cursed under his breath. Of course he had a backup plan. The Titan Guard fired. A blast of blue energy hit the sand where Elias had stood a moment before, sending him flying through the air. He landed hard, pain ripping through his side. The beast roared and charged at the metal giant, but the Titan caught it with a powerful strike, throwing it against the wall. The creature howled in pain as pieces of rock crashed around it. Elias forced himself up, his vision blurred. He looked at the broken rifle in his hand, useless now. He glanced at the beast, then at the Titan. "Come on, Ward," he muttered. "One last push." He ran forward, grabbing a sharp piece of metal from the ground. Sparks flew as the Titan aimed again. Just as it fired, the beast lunged, slamming its full weight into the machine's side. The shot went wide, tearing into the stands instead. Elias climbed the Titan's leg, stabbing wires and metal joints as he went. Sparks exploded around him. The machine jerked violently. The beast clawed at its chest, trying to pull it apart. Finally, Elias reached the glowing power core near its neck. He jammed the metal shard deep into the cables. A blinding light filled the arena. The explosion shook the city. When the dust cleared, the Titan was in ruins. The beast knelt, breathing heavily. Elias lay nearby, motionless for a moment, then slowly sat up coughing. He looked at the creature and smiled weakly. "Told you we make a good team." The beast lowered its massive head beside him. Its deep eyes softened. For the first time in its life, it bowed. And high above, the Emperor watched, silent, pale, and afraid. The crowd, once hungry for death, now whispered a single word that would echo across the stars. "Human." The smoke began to fade. The smell of burning metal and dust hung in the air. The arena that once stood as a symbol of power and cruelty now lay in ruins. Walls broken, sand blackened, bodies scattered like fallen shadows. Captain Elias Ward sat on the cracked ground, breathing heavily. His skin was burned, his hands bleeding, but his eyes still carried that same iron focus. Nearby, the beast of Raxus kneeled, its chest rising and falling like the tide. Its armor-like scales were cracked, glowing faintly red under the dying suns. Above them, the crowd was silent. Thousands of aliens frozen between fear and awe. The Emperor, standing in his golden balcony, stared down with disbelief and fury. His empire's perfect symbol of dominance, his beast, was kneeling beside a human. Elias looked up at the Emperor and wiped blood from his lips. "You've lost your monster," he said quietly. The Emperor's 4 eyes flared with rage. He lifted his hand and slammed it against the control pad on his throne. The arena floor shook as hidden panels opened. From beneath the sand, thin metallic rods rose, glowing red. Elias felt the hairs on his arms rise. "What now?" he muttered. A sharp, burning pain exploded through his body. He fell to his knees, gasping. The rods had released an electric charge that surged through the entire arena. Sparks danced along the sand. The beast roared in agony, slamming its claws into the ground. Blue light crackled along its body, forcing it to its knees. From above, the Emperor's voice boomed, filled with hate. "You think you can defy me? You are toys in my house of war. You will kneel or burn." Elias clenched his teeth, forcing himself to rise. The pain was unbearable, like fire crawling under his skin. But he had known pain before, on battlefields, in loss and silence. Pain didn't stop him. It reminded him he was still alive. He stumbled toward the beast, who was thrashing under the shock. Sparks scorched its flesh. Its roars turned weak and broken. Elias shouted through the electric storm, "Listen to me. Don't give in. You're free now. Don't let him take that away." The beast's eyes flickered, golden light fading to red, then back again. Its claws dug deeper into the ground. It was fighting the pain, but losing. Elias fell beside it, wrapping his arms around the thick metal collar that still sparked at its base. The electricity hit him instantly. His vision went white, his muscles locked. Still, he held on. "You're stronger than this," he shouted. "You fought their battles for years. Fight for yourself now." The beast lifted its head slowly. Its massive eyes looked at him, confused, pained, and then something shifted. The growl in its chest changed, no longer a cry of pain, but a defiance. With one final roar, it slammed its claws into the ground, shattering the rods that powered the electric field. Sparks burst into the sky. The arena systems overloaded, one after another. The lights went out. Silence. When the smoke cleared, Elias and the beast stood side by side again. The air shimmered with heat and smoke. The crowd stared in disbelief. Elias turned his head toward the Emperor's balcony. "You built this place to show strength," he said, "but you don't even know what strength means." The Emperor slammed his fist on the railing. "Enough! Kill them!" Guards poured in once more, dozens, maybe hundreds. Their weapons glowed, but the crowd didn't cheer this time. They hesitated. Some even booed. A small alien child in the stands pointed toward Elias and shouted, "Let them go." Others joined. The chant began to spread like a spark in dry grass. "Let them go! Let them go!" The Emperor's voice cracked with fury. Silence. But the crowd didn't stop. They were tired of blood, tired of fear. The human and the beast had done the impossible. They had given even the slaves and the broken hope. Elias looked around, feeling the shift. This was no longer a fight for survival. It was a fight for freedom. He turned to the beast. "Ready to end this?" The beast rumbled in reply, low, steady, like a drumbeat of war. Together, they walked toward the center of the arena. The Emperor screamed orders, but his soldiers hesitated, uncertain. Some dropped their weapons. Some fled. Elias picked up a fallen guard staff, still crackling with blue light. He pointed it at the Emperor's balcony. "You built an empire on fear," he said, "but fear dies today." The beast roared beside him, the sound shaking the city walls. The Emperor stepped back, pale and trembling. For the first time, he looked afraid. Elias raised the staff. The beast pounded its claws into the ground. A crack split the arena floor, running up the walls, reaching the Emperor's throne. The crowd went silent as the balcony began to crumble. The Emperor tried to run, but the floor gave way. His golden armor flashed once before he fell into the pit below. The ground went still. The air was heavy. Then, slowly, the crowd began to cheer, not for the Emperor, but for the man and the beast who had defied him. Elias dropped the staff and looked at his companion. "It's over," he said softly. The beast lowered its head, pressing it gently against the human's shoulder. Elias smiled. "No, it's only the beginning." The suns burned low behind them, casting two long shadows across the sand. One a man, one a monster, standing side by side, equals at last. And in that moment, the legend of the Arena Brotherhood was born. The suns of Korthar burned low, their light painting the broken arena in a deep red glow. Smoke curled through the air like ghosts rising from sand. The Emperor was gone, his golden balcony shattered, his voice silenced forever. The crowd stood frozen, still trying to understand what had just happened. At the center of it all, Captain Elias Ward stood beside the beast of Raxus, both battered, burned, but alive. The human's breathing was shallow, each inhale sharp with pain. The beast's chest rose and fell like thunderclouds, its golden eyes burning faintly in the dusty air. Silence lingered, heavy, almost sacred. Then, slowly it broke. From the upper tiers, someone began to cheer. One voice, then another, then hundreds. Soon the arena thundered with sound, not the roar of bloodlust, but something new. Hope, freedom, freedom, freedom. The chant grew until it shook the very stone. Elias looked around in disbelief. The same beings who had cheered for slaughter were now cheering for change. He turned to the beast and smiled weakly. They finally get it. The beast tilted its massive head, its eyes softening. It understood, maybe not the words, but the meaning. Then came the sound of engines. The crowd gasped as ships descended from the skies. The Emperor's fleet, loyal soldiers who had not seen his fall. Dozens of sleek, black vessels hovered above the arena, their cannons glowing blue. A cold voice echoed from the lead ship's loudspeakers. "This is General Vecker of the Korthar Imperial Guard. Lay down your weapons. The Emperor's orders stand. All rebels will be purged." Elias raised his head toward the sky. "He's dead, Vecker," he shouted. "The Emperor's gone. This is over." The voice crackled back. "Then you die with him, human." The cannons began to hum. The crowd screamed and scattered for cover. Elias looked up, the blue glow reflecting in his eyes. He turned to the beast. "We're not done yet." The beast roared, a sound so deep and powerful it rattled the ships above. Dust exploded into the air. The roar was not of rage. It was a signal. From the tunnels beneath the arena, something began to move. Prisoners, slaves, and wounded fighters emerged. Dozens of alien species, once forced to fight for the Emperor's entertainment. They carried scavenged weapons, broken armor, and the fire of rebellion in their eyes. The beast turned toward them, standing tall, its voice echoing in deep, resonant growls. The fighters paused, then raised their weapons and cheered. They had a leader now, 2 of them. Elias climbed onto the beast's shoulder and shouted over the chaos. "You've all bled in this place. You've all lost something. No more chains. No more masters. We take back our freedom today." The arena erupted with a new roar, a cry for liberation. The ships opened fire. Blasts of blue energy rained down, striking the walls, tearing through stone and metal. But the people did not run this time. They fought back. Plasma rifles fired from the stands. The beast leaped high, slamming into one of the low-flying ships, dragging it down in a shower of sparks. Elias clung to its back as the 2 crashed into the sand. He jumped clear at the last second, rolling hard. The ship exploded behind him, flames lighting up the sky. The rebels surged forward, wave after wave, the air filled with smoke and light. It was chaos, but it was their chaos, not for sport, not for the Emperor's pleasure, for freedom. Elias picked up a fallen soldier's weapon and fired at the nearest ship. The beast tore through another, its claws slicing through metal like paper. A dozen alien fighters swarmed the remaining vessels, climbing aboard and throwing grenades inside. One by one, the ships began to fall. General Vecker's voice shouted in fury. "You fools! You think this rebellion means anything? Without order, you are nothing." Elias raised his weapon, aiming at the hovering command ship. "We're not nothing. We're free." He fired. The shot hit the main cannon. It exploded in a blinding flash. The entire ship burst into flame and crashed into the outer walls, sending a wave of dust and heat across the arena. Silence followed. The battle was over. Elias dropped his weapon and fell to his knees, exhausted. His body ached, his vision blurred. He looked at the beast, who was standing over him, breathing heavily but alive. The crowd, now free, now unshackled, began to chant again. Human! Beast! Human! Beast! Elias smiled faintly. Guess we made a good team after all. The beast lowered its head and gave a deep, low rumble, one that sounded almost like laughter. The suns had sunk below the horizon now, and the first stars appeared in the sky. The arena glowed softly in their light, broken, scarred, but reborn. Elias looked out over the ruins, the fires, the faces of those who had fought beside him. For the first time since arriving on this planet, he felt peace. He turned to the beast and whispered, "This isn't the end. It's the start of something bigger." The beast nodded, eyes glowing faintly gold. From the ashes of the arena, a new world would rise, one built on strength, honor, and unity. And that night, as the freed crowd gathered around the man and the beast, the legend began to take form. They would call it the Arena Revolt, the day a human and a monster broke an empire. The suns of Korodar were setting, painting the ruined arena in red and gold. Smoke drifted upward like ghosts escaping their prison. The once mighty walls that had echoed with screams and cheers now stood silent. What was once a place of death had become a cradle of something far greater: freedom. Captain Elias Ward stood on the broken steps of the arena center, his body torn and bloodied, but his back straight as a blade. Beside him, the beast of Raxus knelt like a mountain brought to life, its golden eyes calm and steady. The air still shimmered from the battle, yet the crowd remained silent, not out of fear this time, but reverence. No one moved, not the soldiers who had once obeyed the emperor's every word, not the slaves who had been forced to fight for amusement, not even the nobles who had once looked down from their golden seats. They all stared at the impossible sight before them. A human and the deadliest creature in the galaxy, standing side by side, not as enemies, but as brothers. Elias turned his head toward the beast. "You're free now," he said softly. The beast lowered its head, letting out a deep, rumbling sound, not a roar, but something gentler. Its massive claw pressed into the sand beside him, like a soldier giving salute. From the upper stands, a small alien child, the same one who had shouted earlier, began to clap. The sound was tiny at first, lost in the wind. Then another joined, and another. Soon, the entire crowd was clapping, cheering, chanting in voices that filled the night. "Human! Human! Beast! Beast!" Elias looked around, his tired eyes softening. For the first time since he'd been captured, he saw hope, real hope, in the faces of those who had once been broken. The Emperor's guards, once loyal to their master, dropped their weapons. Some knelt, others simply walked away, their armor clattering against the ground. The Empire's control had ended, not by force, but by courage. Elias turned to the beast again. "They'll need someone to lead them," he said. "Someone strong." The beast tilted its head, a low rumble rolling from its chest, as if to say, "Not without you." Elias chuckled quietly, the sound dry and tired. "Fine," he said. "We'll do it together." He placed his hand against the creature's thick hide. It was warm, alive, pulsing with strength. A silent promise passed between them, stronger than words or language. The moment didn't last long. From beyond the arena walls, the sounds of ships filled the air, the Emperor's remaining fleet, rushing to retake control. Dozens of black shapes crossed the sky, engines howling. Elias looked up, jaw tightening. "They're coming!" The beast growled, ready to fight again. But Elias raised a hand. "No, not here, not today." He looked around at the broken people in the stands, aliens of every kind, weak and wounded, but alive. "We've already won," he said quietly. "We showed them what strength really means." The beast seemed to understand. It lowered its body, motioning for him to climb onto its back. Elias hesitated only a moment before doing so, gripping the creature's thick mane of scales. As the first ships landed outside the arena gates, the beast reared up and let out a roar so powerful it shook the entire city. The sound wasn't just fury, it was a declaration, a promise. Then, with a leap that sent sand flying in every direction, the creature smashed through the broken wall and disappeared into the crimson horizon, carrying the human on its back. Weeks late, our story spread like wildfire. They called it the day the arena fell. They spoke of a human who came unarmed, who faced a beast that had slain 300 warriors and walked out alive. They spoke of how the beast refused its master, broke its chains, and chose honor over survival. And they spoke of how, together, they vanished into the desert, leaving behind an empire built on fear. Elias and the beast of Raxus became legends, whispered by slaves, sung by soldiers, feared by tyrants. Across the stars, their names were spoken with reverence. Some said they built a refuge beyond the sands, a place where warriors of every species could live free, bound not by power but by loyalty and respect. They called it the Brotherhood of the Arena. Its symbol was simple: 2 hands, one human and one clawed, clasped together in unity. Generations later, when new wars rose and empires fell, that symbol would appear again, painted on armor, carved into walls, burned into flags. It became more than a memory. It became a movement. And in the quiet corners of the galaxy, when children asked their parents if the story was true, the elders would smile and say, "Yes." Once, a man walked into an arena with no weapon and left with a brother. On a lonely world far beyond Korthar, 2 figures stood atop a cliff overlooking a vast red desert. Elias, older now, watched the horizon in silence. His arm bore old scars, and his eyes carried the weight of years. Beside him, the beast of Raxus rested on all 4s, its golden eyes calm and knowing. The wind carried no sound of war anymore, only peace. Elias smiled faintly. "We did it," he said. The beast rumbled softly, lowering its head. Together, they stood as the sun set again, 2 warriors who had defied an empire and taught the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Strength is not in domination. Strength is in unity. And so, under the light of twin suns, the legend of the human and the beast lived on, not in stories, but in the hearts of every free soul who dared to rise against their chains.